So good morning. It is my pleasure to join this first panel in the crowdfunding conference. I have not planned to do the presentation in English, so my presentation is in Portuguese, and I will give the talk in English to allow a discussion with other panel members. In this session, we have a discussion about new regulation in Europe, the perspective of the Research Center, the Cambridge School for Alternative Finance, that is, I believe, one or the most important source of data about crowdfunding and fintech, and also the perspective from the entrepreneur side and from the platforms. To finish this debate, I'll attempt to present a snapshot of the industry in Europe and to provide a further discussion of some of the data that we have already here today. So, first, I'll provide some data about the trends and figures of crowdfunding, and then I suggest to look for the crowdfunding industry from the perspective of a two-sided market. We have the platform that is intermediary, and we have two clients, the fundraisers and investors. So I propose to take a look to these three actors. First, just to summarize, crowdfunding has received an important growth during last years. Asia-Pacific is the region with the highest volume, followed by the America and then the Europe. Each region has a leader, the US, in America, China in the Asia-Pacific, and UK in Europe. And it's important to note that Europe grown around 40% last year, and excluding UK, the growth is around 100. And according to the data that we hear today, Portugal registered highest growth, 146. So this is important new data that we can highlight. Crowdfunding has not only increased the volume, but also the awareness from the crowd, from the population. Here I have some graphs with the Google Trends data that records the Google searches that we do in our computers. So according to the IP of each household, we have here the searches about term crowdfunding from the worldwide and from some of the main countries in Europe. It's important to note it is an increasing awareness or a strong awareness about crowdfunding in the crowd. Now let's take a look about a study from the crowdfunding that performed a benchmark about the crowdfunding in Europe, comparing two types of variables. First of all, the volume data, and then the regulation. And according to the index of maturity that combines these two indicators, UK is the country with the highest maturity index. And for Portugal, it's quite interesting because we got a stronger rating in the regulation compared with the volume. So there is room to increase volume data according to this study. Crowdfunding. If we look a couple of years ago from the European Commission reports, only 4 types of crowdfunding were discussed: the lending, the equity, the reward, and donation. But if you look to the new report, latest report of the Cambridge Center for Alternative Finance, you can see more than 14 categories. That means also that industry has moved by increasing different offering to different types of investors and address different needs. We have already looked to the data. Peer-to-peer lending in the industry records more than half of the market share, and looking for the equity crowdfunding in Europe is around 50%. Another interesting result is to look to the onboarding and successful rate that we have already discussed today. Platforms they are likely to succeed if they manage to have a flow of projects with good quality. And according to these figures, you may conclude that the onboarding rate, for example, for equity is around 50%, and the success rate is 78. That means that platforms manage to select the best projects because they are aware of the fact that the quality of the project is a key factor of success. Looking also to the data, different types of sectors appeal to different types of crowdfunding. Again, looking to the equity crowdfunding, it has attracted attention mainly of technology and e-commerce projects. Now let's move to the platforms. Platforms are web-based marketplaces. And one interesting result is, as we have seen, Europe is not the strongest region in terms of crowdfunding volume, but we concentrated the highest percentage of platforms. And that means that probably some concentration issues may arise in the future as they already are observed in the UK, mergers and acquisitions, because maybe some small platforms do not manage to have enough number of flow of projects to continue their activity. Some platforms, the first platforms that appear on the market have some benefits today, or benefit in terms of market share, awareness, and reputation. Other trends are the specialization by sector and by crowdfunding type. Usually a platform offers mainly one type of crowdfunding. Of course, there are cases where they may offer two models. According to the business models, there are a variety of taxes that platforms practice. Usually in the crowdfunding model, the fundraisers are those that mainly pay these fees to the platforms. And then looking again to the perceived risks by the platforms, one important result is that on the top are the risks of fraud in a platform or due to misconduct in the large project. And this is an important result because there are negative effects that some negative effects might arise on the market if due to misconduct. And if we link this result with the figures about onboarding rate, this could be a conclusion. The highest level of risk linked with misconduct, and platforms start having concern about quality of the projects and decreasing the onboarding rate. Now let's look to the fundraisers. Crowdfunding targets mainly small and medium enterprises and startups, and for example in the UK, the percentage of this group is around 70%. The European Commission released a manual to the project promoters and highlights that different models of crowdfunding may appeal to different stages of the company life cycle. If the company has an idea, maybe the donation may apply. In the step of project or product development, the reward might be a solution, and if they are planning to increase the capacity, the lending or the equity might be a solution. So this is an important also. According to the literature, there are three main types of motivations to release a campaign. from the fundraiser's perspective. The first, of course, is a financial motivation, an alternative way of financing the project. Then some marketing motivations might arise because it is an opportunity to market and to do the market research and the test market of the product. And finally, also to add to the project with the network that the platform offers and the opportunities to increase the partnerships. What are the key success factors of a project? According to the literature, they could be organized in 4 components. The first is the platform. The reputational platform might have an impact on the success of the project. The second is the promoter, the experience of the team that is developing the project. The project itself, of course, the sector, the amount, the duration, and then also we have here the communication strategy. And according to the literature, the information provided, the video, and so on, has an impact on the likelihood of the project to succeed. And we believe we can have a discussion with the results, with the points for further discussion that is in the new regulation about the restrictions for the marketing of individual projects. About this topic, the success drivers of crowdfunding campaigns, I'd like to summarize the results of a study, a paper published in Cadernos de Valores Mobiliários, that is the journal of CMVM, where we studied the success drivers of a set of around 5,000 sport crowdfunding campaigns, and we measured success according to variables, whether or not the project reached the target amount, and then we explained the overfunding. So econometrically, this is a hurdle model, 2-step. In the conclusions, we conclude that projects that with lower target amount are more likely to succeed. Those that are more likely to succeed manage to have the highest number of investors. Comparing the reward and the donation projects have a higher likelihood to succeed than the reward. That may be due to the motivations of the investors in these types of projects. And finally, one important result, projects that are promoted or are and the platforms where we have all or nothing model, that is the promoter only, the fundraiser only receives the amount if the target amount is reached, are more likely to succeed. That might have an explanation that investors try to have trust in the campaigns. And now looking to the investors, the final of these 3 actors, one of the trends in the industry is institutionalization of the platforms. The equity-based crowdfunding usually gathers the highest number of investors. And looking to psychographic variables, there are 2 main types of motivations to invest in a project. The first is a financial motivation, and the second is an emotional or personal motivation. Usually financial motivations are linked with crowd lending and crowd investing, and personal and emotional motivations are associated with reward and donations, this crowd sponsoring, I would say. The percentage of females investing in equity crowdfunding is 15%, and we have just discussed it. Compare it, for example, with Bitcoins or ICOs, is lower, is 5%. So this is a quite interesting result. And just to draw some conclusions, the industry of crowdfunding industry has grown during last years. Different types of models appear on the market. However, there is some heterogeneity, and the growth path is different according to the region. One interesting result is the perception of platforms has the risk of misconduct, has the highest risk, and how they manage to increase the criteria for the selection of the projects and looking to the low onboarding rates and the highest percentage of projects that succeed. And to end, looking for this perspective, this session is about crowdfunding in Europe. I believe that as crowdfunding is an alternative mode of finance for small and medium enterprises and for startups, we know from the literature that the innovation from these types of companies generates the highest level of spillover effects. So they contribute to innovation, to growth, to the employment, to the competitiveness of Europe. And as crowdfunding has invested the crowd, I believe that is also a way to engage the community, the crowd, the population, to increase the financial literacy, finance democratization, and also there is room to increase the culture of entrepreneurship with this alternative mode of finance. Thank you.